And that, I think, leads right into this third question, because as we've talked about this, Harry, it is about like, we're looking for a new motive, we're looking for a new vision of life. And so if someone is approaching their healing or recovery with a lot less effort, they're just trying to do the bare minimum, what might they be missing in that mindset? What might they be missing in their recovery journey if they're just trying to do the bare minimum?
Yeah, Nick, that is such a great question because the bare minimum is I'm trying to pretend. I'm trying to pretend to my spouse and those people who are watching me that are important to me. I'm pretending to do something. But there is a belief underneath it that either says, I don't want to change, or they're saying, I can't change, or it's too difficult to give it up. The first leader of For Men Only, the forerunner to Pure Desire, a good friend of mine named Scott, he said to me that when I gave up masturbation, I lost my best friend. It had helped me through the trauma of a horrible circumstance in my family of origin. It had helped me through a marriage and a divorce that was not related to my addiction. And now I'm facing that I've got to give this behavior up. And I'm feeling like I'll be alone. I'm going to be at a loss.
And what do I do with the pain?
Yeah. And again, because addictive personalities thrive on the oxymoron of isolation. It feels the safest place we can be because there's no one looking over our shoulder, but it's the place we have the less discipline, and we end up doing harm to ourselves. Like you're trying to run a marathon without training for it, and you are trying to escape your life, and you don't do that in community.
Yeah.
In community, which is a part of the healing goal, I tell all the clients that this is about your learning to live in community. I have a group of men that my old pastor Keith Jenkins used to call Over the Hill Club, and they show up at my house every Monday, and I do mean every Monday, New Year's, Christmas, 4th of July, whatever. If it's on a Monday, they'll show up in my house, and we have mutual accountability, though most of the people in that group aren't battling with sexual addiction, but they're battling with something.
Yeah.
And when you have a team of people who are there for you, and they're calling up and checking on you, you know that you're not only going to let your spouse down, your kids down. You have these men who are devoting time and energy every week, and that's what happens in our Pure Desire groups.
That's right.
We have men who are devoting time and energy, making accountability phone calls, and so you have to look back. Am I isolating? Am I telling myself a non-truth? Is it a confabulation to me? A confabulation is something that's false that you believe is true. Okay, you have to challenge that inner narrative, the stories that you're telling yourself, because our limbic system functions, our brain functions off a story. When our five senses feed into the hippocampus, it's our data center, and it just shares the data with the amygdala, with the prefrontal cortex and the prefrontal cortex and one other part of the brain we don't need to get into today creates context for the story. And the limbic system thinks the story is true, although it's only taking its best guess for what it is. We have to learn to challenge the story, and when we take people through the work of Genesis process, we are telling them that they have false beliefs. False belief is something that we believe that goes against Scripture. So what does the Bible say? How do we replace it? How do we actually begin to live out the values that are presented in the Bible? And that means, are we attending church? Are we opening our Bible and studying it? Are we reading it? Are we participating in a life dedicated to following the invisible God?
Yeah, Harry, I love like the components there, and I think for my own story, the things that were missing were, why am I doing this? The vision for what I wanted, and then community. Yeah. And those three things, they didn't happen at once. They were built over time.
Yep.
And I mean, you plugged groups, I'll plug groups again. Like those things were met in group, like actually having true, authentic community that could know the most real and raw parts of myself, like parts of the story where it's like, I've never told anyone this before. Like those moments are powerful when we invite others into that part of our story and community, and having the why for why we want to pursue health. And I mean, initially mine was just selfishly not to lose my marriage and my family, but then to have that grow to be like, no, I want more than just keeping what I don't want to lose. Like
I remember the first day that you and I met.
I do too. What a good day that was.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking about too, Stuart, that we can get into a belief that the good life would just be my current life without the addictive behavior, whatever it is. And if I could just get that out, the rest is okay. But what we don't realize is that we have settled in our addiction, we've settled for a level of relationships that are not near what they can be. We've settled for a kind of marriage that is not near what it can be. We've settled for a kind of parenting and friendship and even our relationship with God that we don't see how much the addiction has been like a poison pill into all of those areas. And I think that's what men and women who don't engage fully in their recovery or bring that passion and energy to it, that's what they're missing, is a lack of willingness to hear others say, it actually gets a whole lot better. And it's worth, because we think, well, if all I'm trying to do is stop masturbating in the shower or stop looking at bad images on my phone, well, yeah, then we're just looking for what's kind of the ideas to help me avoid that behavior, versus if the motive and the goal is to have deeply meaningful, fulfilling relationships everywhere I go, well, that starts to feel like, well, that's worthy of my life pursuit. Like that's everything. That's what I'm here for. Well, then I would put a whole lot more energy into that. So we might be settling for a version of life that is not near what God has called us for. And if we can be open to that idea that there's something greater we were made for, then I think we're more motivated, hopefully, to do the work it will take to get there.
Absolutely. I'm 74 going on 75. And this year I committed to, as a counselor, I have to have ongoing training. That's something that does not stop. And I took a course from a fellow named Adam Young that was 12 8-hour lectures over the course of a year, the first Saturday of every month, and then 2 hours Q&A. And I learned things about myself this year.
It's a serious
that
commitment.
I didn't know. And I would tell you, I'm so sad that I finished the course because I was getting insight, and as I was writing insights down, someone was speaking something that I probably didn't hear, and I'm going to have to go back through all of those videos and the Q&A times to understand that. But it is a part of the passion to say that Paul tells us in 2 Corinthians that we're to be changed from glory to glory into his image. Well, I tell my friends that I don't want to emotionally, spiritually plateau myself. I've done enough. I want to continue to grow until I physically flatline.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
May it be so for all of us.